So welcome, Verena. Thanks for joining us today for this little drop-in lunch and learn. Could you start with telling us who you are, what you do, what Million Labs is, just a little bit of bring it to life.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm Verena. I'm based in Frankfurt, Germany. And I've always been very passionate about working together with startups. So back then during my studies, I actually built my first venture and hosted like 30 plus startup events. I've always been, really enjoying the process of bringing people together. And now at Million Labs, I'm basically a partner, mainly in charge of the operational side of the business. So everything from project management to customer success. And Million Labs is really on a vision to launch 1 million startups over the next year. So really ambitious. We want to achieve that by really making use of modern tech tools such as no-code platforms to help especially non-technical people out there to turn their ideas into a prototype and really get started on the market. We are on the market since 2018, have helped more than 1,000 founders.
And you might be from Germany, but Million Labs isn't, is it?
Yeah, it's UK based, agency, exactly. Yeah, but we are like our founders sit everywhere, so to say.
So you're servicing the globe. So let's just unpack some of what you were describing there. Like the uninitiated, what is no code and a bit about that movement and how it's evolved would be great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so no code is basically a way to build software without needing to write code, right? So you can think about it as like visual tools, like drag and drop tools, where you can basically put pieces together and build your own product, right? There is a difference between no code and low code tools, right? So no code is really, like straightforward, like you can build things very easily. Low code is a bit more difficult, but opens, is basically more, has more impact on what you can build. But both of these tools, right, when you compare them to traditional coder tools, what they have in common is that when you build with them, you can basically build a product 10 times faster and 10 times cheaper than what it used to be. And this obviously opened the market for so much more people. And we are really passionate about supporting that trend.
And does that resonate with your own founder experience? So you said you'd done some stuff before this role.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to be honest, I mean, it was always super difficult for me, like to really understand, how I could ever like build my own software product, right? It was so far off. So back then I took actually some classes at informatics and it actually made it worse, right? It was like, okay, how should that now try? It helps when you want to become a developer, but I think when you want to, just want to build something and are more interested from an entrepreneurship perspective, it's really difficult. So I remember when my brother actually told me about no code and he just signed up. He signed me up for an account, right? I was like, hey, can you help me with that task? I'm like, okay, and this is first when I really started to understand how much impact it actually has, right? So I then used it for my first venture. It was entirely built basically on no code. And then later on, met Simon and Geoff. And then here we are. Like what still fascinates me about it is, now obviously, me as a non-technical person, I'm now running a technical company, right? Which I think no code really enabled me. So really fascinating trend, so to say.
Yeah, and it's that sort of unlocking power, isn't it? As the no code is, people call it a movement, don't they? But as a scene or whatever this is in the tech landscape, has it really grown or evolved much? You've been going since 2018.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have always seen there are different waves, right? Obviously, when you think back, like even like website builders where like when you think about Wix, right, and Webflow, so there was always this trend, but then obviously, since a few years there are now all these no-code tools where you can really build complex things, right, that are also scalable. And what we see is, I was a speaker at a no-code summit, and I think last year it was a lot about, hey, why you should use no code. And this year it was a lot about all the use cases, right, that you can have with no code, and actually also the big corporations like Microsoft entering the market, etc. So it gets way more, you know, accepted, and it's way more
sort of normalized.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I don't know, my brain's going. I've got so many different threads going like that. But are there any limits to the use case? You know, you said there's more coming online, and people think, well, there's compromise attached to perhaps this way of approaching it. You're a founder, you've got your big vision, haven't you? And yet this might sound like a compromise, I suppose. What's the evolutionary journey where it might fit into, you know, is it forever? Can it be forever?
Yeah, I mean, we all want to, you know, we all want to make an idea. We all want to make sure our idea succeeds, but the market shows that 90% of founders fail. The reason why I'm saying that is, how much are you worth? How much is it worth to you to figure out that you are like wrong, right? I think no code is only like a tool, right, that helps you to test your idea 10 times faster, 10 times cheaper, right? So I think as a founder, you should, instead of thinking, oh, what shall I do in 5 years, you know, or, you know, in like what, you know, when do I need to move to code? Start really thinking about how can I win my first customers, right? And if you get to a point when the platform reaches the limit, then you have a good problem, right? Because then you usually also have some money and can then, you know, like also switch over. But usually, like, it doesn't happen very often. So I think it's all just fear in our head. And no-code tools are way more robust than what most people think. You can have thousands of users and you can still, you know, run on no-code.
And is AI changing the landscape much with capabilities and other options available to founders?
100%. And I mean, it's just, again, you know, like just, you know, like speeding up the whole trend of basically speeding up your whole delivery, right, of building a product, right? So if you ask me, hey, you know, we already see how quick it evolves, but probably in the future, you know, you will speak to an AI bot and, you know, they will probably have some, you know, specific use cases to give you a first version of, you know, like your app, right? I think what still remains is the challenge of building a product, right? Like a challenge of building distribution, getting, you know, like being comfortable with sales, etc. So yeah, AI won't make that job for us, but it definitely speed up things, and we really believe that, you know, we shouldn't fight it, but we should actually encourage that trend.
Yeah, the sooner we can get people to test the market, then that's all for the better, and you can spend your time on all the different parts of the business, because the idea might still not be what you think it is in reality and what you can sell.
100%. Yeah.
And if Geoff was here, he'd probably, you know, say you've probably managed more than any person alive the development of MVPs. If you could give some top tips to a startup founder, we sort of started to touch on some there, what the lessons learned. And I know also when we talked before, that scoping phase being like, it's not really about the build, is it? That's the easier bit once you get through that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are quite a few. I think I want to touch upon one of the most important one that we found in you know, like that most people are doing wrong, so kind of, is I think what we see is that most founders, they spend too little time on the business and too much time on the MVP, right? So in other words, like they really overestimate the tech and they underestimate everything else that goes, you know, hand in hand with it. And so while they get the concept, they say they get the concept of an MVP, what we see is once we start building the project for them, like this is then, you know, when they start about getting really stuck in every detail, right? And they actually confuse an MVP with a final product, right? So, and we are not saying it's about, you know, like you should make compromises in terms of quality, etc. But what we always teach people is what can you actually, you know, what is really needed in your scope to really validate your idea. Most often it's way more simpler than we think, right? So my advice is really for everyone who wants to plan doing an MVP, keep the scope really as lean as possible and really think about the other like parts of the business early on, such as sales, marketing, distribution, you know, and set some budget aside so that you are not, you know, lost once we launched the MVP.
Yeah. So is there a better time for people to start on this process? Because quite often, like, you know, we see people going into incubators, they get a lot of support on that business plan and things, and they feel like they're ready, or some they just go, I can't do anything until I've got, you know, something to show people, or they're stuck on a PowerPoint. Is there a sweet spot?
Yeah, I think it's a misconception that people think they can just lean back while we build the tech, right? It's I think what we want to encourage people to do is actually be active during the whole time when we build. It's a good time actually to set yourself milestones in terms of, okay, you know, till that week, right? I want to make sure I know how I approach my target group, right? I want to build a waiting list. I want to, you know, educate myself about Google Ads, whatever, right? I think the more you can prepare early on during the build, the better you are prepared to then do the real job, which is, you know, like what then also, you know, distinguishes you as a founder.
Yeah. So on the one hand, we've got some people who are really keen and just want to get into that, but at the same time, there's quite a few that probably don't still come forwards with their ideas, or think that they're stuck. And, you know, certainly in SuperTech, we're really bothered about that bit of the pipeline, because it's driving sort of some of the horrible statistics, isn't it, around, you know, it's a very male dominance, it tends to be quite middle-aged, it tends to be quite white, but, you know, because of the history of how technology businesses start. So we think no code can be a democratizing tool in this way, yet somehow I wondered in your insights into what you think's holding people back.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think beyond the fear, you know, of failing, I think what's also holding people back is that a lot of people still don't know about no code, right? And they don't know actually how it can correlate with entrepreneurship, right? So I think we need to make sure that we educate people about what is actually possible, right? Be it at home, at university, with programs like SuperTech, right? We need to teach them, like, first of all, what is no code, but then second, what is a good framework, right? How you can actually apply no code to build a venture, right? So these two things need to come together so that people, you know, you can have the best tools, but if no one knows about it and no one knows how to apply it, right, in a simple, like, you know, like framework, then it's really difficult, I think, for people to even consider starting a company, right? Obviously, failure is still a big thing, right? I mean, we see it that when people like launch, you know, like their startup, they still get super frustrated when people complain about stuff. But actually, complaining can be a good thing, because it means people are actually using your product.
Yeah, they're engaging with it. And there's some feedback.
There is some traction, right? You know, the alternative problem is no one is using it, and you know, you don't have any new customers.
And you don't know why, what they want to see.
Exactly. And I think it's in general, I mean, like, failing is part of succeeding. And we always say that to every founder out there. We have never seen any founder, you know, who hasn't, you know, struggled or, you know, like made mistakes. It's just normal. And we all say we agree, but we need to remind ourselves, like, once we launch, right?
Yeah, I suppose then you develop the MP, you go through scoping, then you get some level of build, and then you can go live into the marketplace. What happens then normally?
Yeah, so basically once you launch, then it's basically when the hard work starts, so to say, right? And you need to obviously, you know, win your first customers. So one advice that we always give is that you basically already build a waiting list early on, right? So you have like a group of people you can reach out to, right? They already indicated they are interested, right? So now is a good time to approach them again. It's always a bit different to the market, but, you know, in most cases, it's really tapping into something you have not done before, right? Like outbound cold calling, you know, like setting up your first campaign. And it's just part of it, right? You need to get a lot of no's to get one yes, right? It's like this process of, again, you know, just having the mindset, and where I think most people really need help with, right? Rather than the marketing jobs to be done, it's rather like, hey, you know, how can I as a founder really like manage these challenges, right?
Yeah, and I think that's something we, you know, really keen to shine a light on, because the sort of social media narrative of a startup founder is, you know, do something, launch a product, and boom, unicorn. You know, and actually, you know, the steps in between and those points about failure and grit and determination. And we're not saying people don't think it's hard work, but I think it's interesting to explore what success looks like for different founders. It's not always the pursuit of becoming a unicorn. Yeah.
No.
So what are the types of success measures you see from your founders? I presume some of them are doing it as their sole pursuit. Some of them it's probably a bit of a portfolio. Some it's the side, it's a scratch. They just needed to be, you know, on the side of their desk.
Yeah, I mean, in general, one of the success criteria we look at is generating revenue and winning your first customers, right? So these are kind of the hard facts. However, I think what we can see is that no code is really also attracting a new target group, right? So what do I mean by that? Like when you think about the journey as a non-technical founder before no code, you had two options, right? Like you either raise money, right, to pay developers, or you find a technical co-founder, right? This is pretty much the old way of doing things, like the Silicon Valley style of thing, right? Where you get like an investor, right? And they push you on these success metrics, right? Whether you want it or not, right? But you need to, in order for their maths to be working, right? You need to like fulfill these criteria, right? However, what we see what no code is doing, it basically like introduces a third option, which is, yeah, you build it on your own, or you let it, you know, you give it to someone else and build it for a fraction of costs. And I think with that, the success criteria change, because it's not for every founder, it's their success means, you know, becoming a unicorn, but instead some of them, they just want to replace their day job, right? Have a bit more freedom and kind of, you know, like launch a lifestyle business, right? You also don't need this $1 billion idea, right? No code just opens the market for so more people and for so many more ways of how you define success as an entrepreneur. And this is personally also something I'm really excited about, right? That, you know, you see so much more innovation as a result of that, so much more really also diverse profiles, right? Of not the stereotypical person, you know, applying for funding, but someone maybe who has never thought about, you know, building a startup, and suddenly it really opens a new world to them. So yeah, really involved.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? It's the different opportunities that come for individuals and making a real, it's an individual, like there's definitely a lifestyle element to it. You know, choosing to be a startup founder is not for the faint-hearted, but there are these different versions of that now, aren't there? You kind of live on the absolute bleeding edge of development and technology. So I wanted to change tack just for a little bit more and explore what you're seeing and really where you think the future of software development is going, or what, you know, what it looks like, what you're thinking about in Million Labs terms for this opportunities.
So for sure, you know, there will be like more automations, right? There will be AI bots, right, helping us to, you know, like speed up the delivery and these kind of things. I'm pretty sure you still need this customization part, and probably this is the, you know, most difficult part to get right. So I still think about probably a generic bot of, you know, like helping out with a base foundation. You still need people, you know, who then go through different use cases, etc. So I don't think it will replace kind of engineers at that level, but definitely speed up the development. However, what I want to touch upon is, I think while tech is always evolving, what I can see is that the people side or the organizational is like, it's very hard for them to catch up, right? It's not only tech that needs to evolve, but also we as individuals need to evolve. That means you can have the best technology and AI, But if you don't know how to use it and how to incorporate it in your systems, then it's almost kind of useless. You can't really, leverage the power. So to give you an example, right? When we used to work with some customers, right, who gave us kind of, document of 200 pages and 3 different levels of, departments had to sign it. And it's like, this is where innovation is just dying, right? Like you can have the best food in the world, but it's just not working, right? And of course, when you're a bigger company, right, you need to follow. It's more difficult, 100%. That's why you see the challenges there. But especially when you're like a smaller company, make use of it, right? That's your asset. That's your power.
Advantage.
Really, operate lean, right? You don't have the money that they have, but you can definitely like adjust to these tools and operate just super lean. And I think this is where the future lies.
Well, that's super exciting. As linked to that, I was just thinking something we often get asked, and you see this, I know, from the agency side of things, that that need to have a totally unique idea, and that actually you see we get themes. Definitely some seasons of our cohorts have more, we had a very heavy wellness theme one season, and we had some other ones more leaning into the property and stuff. To what extent do you think that matters? Like when you're, did it matter if it's not wholly unique, or can it be about the experience of the deployment, or that, that innovation journey to be more agile and do stuff better? Or
I mean, 2 thoughts. One is, there's a very common saying that I like to rephrase. It's like, you don't need to make the train faster, but just you need to make the journey more enjoyable, right? So you can tap in the same niche, but you just need to find your edge, to win customers, right? You can solve the same problem, right? You just need to see how you can like differentiate yourself in the whole experience. That's I think one part. The other part is just back to the question of, what does your vision look like, right? Like, where do you want to go in life, right? I think if you want to be a VC-backed startup, I think people will really nail you down a bit more to, hey, what is your USP, right? How can I make sure, you are like the 1 billion, company, right? It needs to work, because that's the VC model, right? But if you are, again, right, like more like a bootstrap company, right, it's just your vision to kind of, you just want to replace kind of your day job, have, some people use it, then it can be completely fine, right? Like to do something similar, right? Both works, but you need to do what you want.
Suit the individual. So final thoughts, we're running out of time here. If somebody wanted to now, go and find out a bit more, or learn a bit more, or take their idea forwards, what do they do?
I think if you're interested in just generally learning about like no code and startups, you can visit our website, millionlabs.co.uk, and we have a blog, right, with several articles. There's also a section called Startup Lab. This is more like in the jobs to be done stage, right? So we give you some tasks, right, and some best practices at hand, so you can test your idea. Obviously, if you want to reach out to me individually, would be best via LinkedIn or via my email, verena@millionlabs.co.uk.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime. Absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you as well. And good job in general with SuperTech. Very exciting.
Thank you.